Hello, welcome to the CPUX UX webinar from UXQB and the ISKI GmbH. Thank you everybody for joining us today. In the next hour, we would like to present to you some information about us, the ISKI group, as certifier for the UXQB exams, as well as some interesting facts about usability and user experience, and of course, what to expect from the different UXQB exams that are offered. Let's have a look. Here he is. Thomas Geis is the president of the UXQB, and me, Franziska Mölling from the SK. We will guide you through the whole presentation. I will start giving you some general facts about the ISKI and who we are and what we are doing. And afterwards, I will hand over to Thomas, who will give you interesting insights into the CPUX portfolio. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat function under the stream. And we will be happy to answer your questions at the end of the session. So for those I'm sorry. So for those who hadn't had contact with the ISKI until now, I will give you some facts and figures about it. We were founded in 2004 in Potsdam, in Germany, and here's our headquarters since today. But we now have 3 subsidiaries worldwide, one in the Netherlands, one in the UK, and one in the US. More than 30,000 IT professionals are certified by us, which makes us to play a significant role in the certifying of know-how of IT professionals. Until today, we conducted over 1 million exams on 6 continents in over 100 countries and in 10 different languages. We are working together with over 500 invigilators who are conducting exams globally. Here you can see the different fields we are specified in and where we have our product portfolio. We do certifications in many different areas. Starting in 2004 with only software testing, we now offer certifications, for example, in requirements engineering, and of course, as you know now, in usability and user experience questions. Because it's getting a more and more important topic, and the demand for the certifications are growing constantly. And before I now hand over to Thomas, I will just try to explain what is the cooperation between the ISKI and who works for what between ISKI and the UXQB and training providers. You will all know because they are providing the training. In the upper side, you can see us, the ISKI as certification body. We are organizing the exams and conducting the exams. And with it, we are the ones who are issuing the certifications. The UXQB publishes and maintains the curriculum. You can see it in the lower left side. They also provide the glossary and, of course, the rules for the certification procedures. And then we have the trainings providers. The UXQB is not they don't conduct the trainings as we have the trainings providers. You can see in the lower right side, they develop the training manuals and the materials, and with it, the trainings are based on the syllabus that is given by the UXQB. So just a short information. Before now, we will get into the topic of user experience, and I will hand over to Thomas.
Right, Francisco. I think what I'll do is I click on share screen, then it says share again, you know, but 5. And it looks like now everybody should see my slides. Okay, now few words about myself. Welcome everybody. My name is Thomas Geis. I am one of the co-founders of the UXQB, the board, the qualification board for usability and user experience. We were founded in 2013, which is 8 years ago. And I've been a full-time usability professional for actually 28 years now. I should update that 25 there. I've been working in the field for almost 30 years, and I started my career. I'm an engineer by education, engineer for automation engineering. And in 1993, I started working as a usability tester. I learned all about usability testing, did that for 10 years. During these 10 years, I learned a lot about user requirements and how to specify them. And then afterwards, founded my own company in 2003. I've been working in international standards development for long years. I'm the convener of the committee that maintains the so-called Common Industry Format, CIF. CIF is a term. If you Google CIF and usability, you will find some stuff. I've edited several ISO standards for usability, and I've been active in the Usability and User Experience Professionals Association for long years. Okay, now what is UXQB? UXQB is a non-profit organization that is run by volunteers. We have volunteers from various countries. You see some of our our so-called national experts down there, the pictures that are shown here. We have been founded as a non-profit organization in 2013, and we are the people who keep the scheme for the certified professional for usability and user experience, who keep this scheme updated. That's our mission. So UXQB is not conducting training. UXQB is not conducting certifications. UXQB is the organization that produces what we call a curriculum. Others call it syllabus. Basically, the requirements that you have to pass if you, or that are the basis for the certification test. And this is what I'm talking about today. A few words in the beginning for those of you who are, let's say, new in the field or haven't really worked with the terms that I'm talking about. There's always this question, what is usability and what is user experience? And as we are the board that qualifies people in usability and user experience, it's important to have clear definitions about those terms. And both of the terms, usability and user experience, are defined in ISO standards. There's an ISO series or ISO standard series 9241, the so-called 9241 series, ergonomics of human system interaction. And usability is defined as the fact that while people are using what we call an interactive system, because it could be hardware or software or a mixture of both of them, while people are using an interactive system, if they are effective, which simply means they get to the outcome that they intended to get to. If you go on a website to book a flight, and by the end of your visit to the website, you have booked the flight that you wanted, we would say you were effective. And if the whole process of booking that flight did not cause any trouble for you in terms of you had to make too many steps, or you ran into use errors where you had to recover and go back and start again. So if you were efficient in terms of you only spent the resources in that task accomplishment that were necessary from a task perspective, that's called efficiency. And if the whole process from your perspective was not giving you sort of a negative impression, we assume you would be satisfied during you worked with the interactive system. And this is the scope of usability. Usability assumes that if users accomplish tasks on a system and they are effective, efficient, and satisfied during that task completion, this is usable then. This is usable, a usable interactive system, and that's where the term usability comes from. Now, if you look at the term user experience looks at, on one hand, it looks at also what we call anticipated use, and it considers that users of systems, or it could even be a toothbrush, users of products, I should say, before they start using it, they already, you could say, perform a usability test in their mind. Even before you purchase a product. If you consider really going to the superstore buying a new toothbrush, and you are in front of the shelf and there are 3 different ones, and you ask yourself, well, which one is the best for me? Actually, in your mind, you imagine what it would be like to brush your teeth with each of them. This is also why people take toothbrushes out of the shelf and try to touch them to see how hard they are or how soft they are. And then they get a perception about what it would be like to use this system. And this is called anticipated use. Anticipated use is the perceptions that people have about a product before they really have used it or before even they have purchased it. Anticipated use. And the life cycle from a user experience perspective of a person using a product consists of not only of the actual use, but also of the anticipated use and the, I call it digested use. In a standard, they don't use the term, but it is, I think it is a rather good one in a presentation. Digested use is what you feel like after you have used the product. So you have used it, it's over, and you might have achieved your intended outcome, or you mightn't. But the responses that you have after you have used something, the responses resulting from use, this is what I here call digested use. They either lead to the user identifying with the product and talking good about it and telling others about it, or you might develop a negative attitude and assume as a user, well, thank God this is over, I will never use this again. And this is the responses resulting from use. And user experience has a wider scope than usability. It looks at what happens before use, what happens after use, and also what are the perceptions, the subjective perceptions and responses of a person that result from use. This is user experience, right? And companies make use of this concept. It's not just sort of a nice sort of definition to remember in terms of you have to have heard it once. There is an online shop here, Mr. Specs. There used to be a startup in Berlin. They are now the largest online store for selling glasses, which before they came up, competitors believed is impossible because people want to try on the glasses in the shop before they purchase them. And these people here, what they have done is they have built a user interface where you can try out glasses online. You can try out glasses online. So this user interface is a user interface for anticipated use of the products that this shop sells. And here you see how powerful this concept of user experience is, because if you support people in getting a realistic impression about what they are going to have once they have purchased it or once they have downloaded it, then people are more likely to simply buy into or buy the products that you're offering or download the software that you are offering. And this is what we call anticipated use. Just to clarify, you can even build user interfaces for anticipated use. You can also build user interfaces for digested use. If you just go into some of the large online stores that we know, you see all those ratings of users where users talk about what they have experienced with the product or what they have experienced with the shop. This is a user interface for digested use. Even something as simple as the thumbs up in Facebook. I think they were the ones that came up with the thumb up. Not too sure, but quite sure. And the thumb up is simply a statement of digested use from a visitor of some website or from the user of some product on that website. So I just want to engage everybody who's listening here to make real use of the concept of user experience. So it's not something we have to have heard once. It's a defined concept, and it becomes more and more relevant in strategic product management. Okay, now the CPUX, the Certified Professional for Usability and User Experience, is based on a standard, or based on a series of standards, and one of the paradigms that we apply in our work is the so-called human-centered design process, published in ISO 9241-210. And this human-centered design process assumes that if you want to predictably develop systems, interactive systems that are usable and have a positive user experience from the user's perspective, not from the manufacturer's perspective, then you have to go through certain activities as part of your development. And the first activity is that you plan your human-centered design process. You plan as part of project planning, you plan what has to be done regarding usability as part of the project. If you don't plan it, we all know it, it's not going to happen. And if you don't plan for usability and user experience, it's not going to happen. It might accidentally happen, and then you are the lucky one. But in reality, most projects are struggling with usability and user experience if they don't go through certain human-centered design activities. And the first one is that you analyze the context of use, that you clarify who are our users, which tasks do they actually perform, in which context are they, what are their as-is scenarios, as we call them. This is called the context of use. And unless you have the context of use, you don't know what you are developing for. And based on that context of use analysis, a buzzword for it is user research. People talk a lot about user research. This is context of use analysis. Based on your context of use analysis, you can identify the user requirements, the requirements that users actually have when they perform their tasks. And based on these user requirements, we then are supposed to come up with design solutions, come up with low fidelity prototypes, come up with high fidelity prototypes. And as we all know, there's a thing called the uncertainty principle. Whatever we design has to be evaluated with users. And if you don't do that, you don't find out what the flaws in your designed solutions are. So that process assumes, you have to specify the context of use. You have to derive the user requirements from the context of use. Then you are supposed to produce design solutions and evaluate them against the user requirements that you have set for the system. And such a structured approach to usability and user experience does not necessarily mean that you always go through those phases in the order that we see them on the screen here. There might be projects where you simply cater for, let's say, older users that you have not catered for before, and therefore you change your design in terms of making it accessible. And in such situation, your project might just focus on an improved design for a specific user group, in which case you still are highly advised to evaluate your design changes or your new design with users. This concept that you see here can also be applied as part of agile project styles. It's not considered to be a waterfall model or where you take a long time before you the first time evaluate with users. This can all happen within one sprint, for example. You just have to do it. Okay, process model for CPUX. The reality with regards to usability and user experience is that many systems are not usable and do not have a positive user experience. In particular, if you look into the area of business systems, we all always think about those smartphones and little apps on the smartphones that are cool. But when it comes to, when it comes to expenses, claims systems, or so-called enterprise resource management systems, you will see users suffering. And interesting is that in many projects, there is still an insufficient number of people who are competent in usability and user experience. And on the other hand, what we see in projects is that often the usability and user experience experts are being consulted only once the system shall be tested from a user's perspective, and then us usability people ask the team, well, what are your requirements and who are your users? And in some projects, you even start having that discussion the first time just before you start testing the system. So often usability and user experience specialists are consulted too late in the design process. And on the other hand, there's an interesting phenomenon that has been given a name by Jared Spool. Jared Spool is an American usability and user experience expert. And the the phenomenon that we are seeing is that there are plenty of systems that start off in their first version quite usable, and over time they become more and more complex. This is also due to the concept of minimum viable product, where you just start off with something that sells, and you don't worry about whether it's complete in terms of all the features it could have. And what we're seeing is that if a product develops over time, increases its functionality, then often the human-centered design process is not being applied sufficiently, and which means the product becomes more and more complex over time. It's an interesting phenomenon. It's a terrible phenomenon, but it's an interesting phenomenon from a usability perspective. And Gerd Spool has called this experience rot. Experience rot, which means something that was nice to use in the beginning, all of a sudden starts smelling badly and feeling completely strange. And this is what we call experience rot. So all I'm saying is that if you really want to be a successful company, successful in terms of usability and user experience, you have to consider the human-centered design activities each and every time when you update your system. And this means we have to have people in the company who understand those concepts. And ideally, we have a common understanding in the organization about usability and user experience. And here the CPUX scheme actually plays a role, because if everybody is trained and certified according to the same scheme, then you develop an understanding in your organization that is consistent across people. And in particular, if we are looking at projects with where we have international teams, which is a rather common thing, where you have people in India working in your project, where you have people in the United States working on your project, where you have people in Switzerland working on your project, as long as these people don't have a common understanding about usability and user experience, you will run into problems in your project. We see it each and every day. Okay, where are we? Let me see. Just get the slide further. Exactly, this slide just said what I just said. The International Usability and User Experience Qualification Board. We are the ones that develop and maintain a consistent quality standard when it comes to human-centered design. This is our mission, right? Now, every time I press picture down, nothing happens on the screen. Looks like this thing wants me to use the mouse. What are the UXQB certification offerings? What is it that you can get certified against? Well, in general, there are 4 certifications that you can achieve. And the first one is the foundation level. It's called CPUX F, foundation level, where we learn the terms and concepts in the field of usability and user experience. And when we talk about terms and concepts, it's not just learning usability. What is usability? What is user experience? It's all about learning the types of deliverables that usability professionals, or let's call them human-centered design professionals for a moment, we learn about the deliverables that are to be produced as part of the overall process. And, to understand what an as-is scenario is in contrast to a use scenario, or to understand what user needs are in contrast to user requirements, is important for the project. And these are all defined terms, and these are things that sort of drop out of those human-centered design activities. And this is what you learn as part of the foundation level. Once you have achieved the foundation level, we have 3 what we call advanced levels. And these advanced levels are about user requirements engineering, CPUX UR, designing solutions, CPUX DS, and usability testing and evaluation, CPUX UT. All those offerings are on the market. There are, as Franziska said, 30 training providers around the globe who offer trainings to learn this. And there's plenty of certificates out there already internationally. How do I get certified? In general, people always ask, what are the prerequisites if I want to gain a CPUX F certificate, the foundation level certificate? The answer is there are no formal prerequisites. It is advisable that you are familiar with basic usability concepts. Most people who take the course somehow are confronted with, or have been working with users in projects, but it's not necessary to have done this. There are no formal prerequisites. There's also pretty experienced people coming to the training, to the training and to the certification tests, just to see whether their knowledge is still up to date. What has what are the new concepts that you might not have learned about 20 years ago, and also people, experienced people, take the certification test to show that they are up to date with their knowledge and that they are professionals in the field. It's just for experienced people. The CPUX F certification is a tool to simply show, yes, we are still up to date, and we have shown it as part of a certification. So anyway, if we look at our certification tests, for the foundation level, it is either a paper-based test, or I should actually add remote test here. So either you have taken a training, and at the end of the training you go through a paper-based test, or you go to a so-called Pearson VUE Center, which is a computer center where you can do the test online, but you have to register before. There are, I think, 5,000 of those centers around the globe. They are basically everywhere. So if you really want to go somewhere and take the test, and you don't have and you want to do this on a computer, Pearson VUE is the choice to take. But also lately, due to the pandemic, we have decided to offer the tests online. So not we, but ISQI. ISQI offers you to register with them and to take the test basically on your computer at home at a time that is suitable for you. And the test consists of 40 multiple choice questions. In general, the test duration is 75 minutes if you are a native English or German speaker, or Chinese speaker if you take the test in Chinese. And for those people who are neither native English speaker, native German speakers, native Chinese speakers, you can apply for a 20% time extension, which means the test then has to be taken within 90 minutes. It looks sort of simple, 40 multiple choice questions, and then you are certified. But the failure rate that we're having is approximately 20%, and which is, it's not obvious to pass this test. And these 40 questions, if you consider that you have to answer them within 75 minutes, it means that you have less than 2 minutes to analyze each of the questions and find the right answers. And 2 minutes is not very long. Okay, so there's a bit of time pressure in the test. Now, foundation level. If we look at our advanced levels in general, our advanced levels all consist of a theoretical test and a practical test. The theoretical test, again, is 40 multiple choice questions for each of our advanced levels. And the test duration for the theoretical test is 90 minutes. But then for each of our certifications for advanced levels, you are supposed to go through a practical test. And if I start off with the user requirements engineering, the practical test takes about 6 hours. 6 hours is the time limit that they put on you. And it's a classroom test where you have to analyze a video where an interview between a professional for user requirements engineering and a user takes place. And the participants then have to document what they have heard, not all of it, but specific parts of the interview. And based on that, you then have 6 hours to identify user needs in that context that was shown to you, to derive user requirements, to develop a task model for a specific task that has been talked about in the interview. And this is the practical test where UXQB wants to see not only that you have understood the theory of user requirements engineering, but that you can also apply it. So this is a general approach to each of our advanced levels. We don't only test knowledge, we also test skill, which is not true for the foundation level. There we test knowledge, but in the advanced levels, we test knowledge and skill. If you look at the designing solutions professional, the practical test is a design assessment, which is also has to be done in a classroom. So the ISQI assessor comes to the classroom. The provider is not there, And then participants have 8 hours time to complete a design assignment about so-called use scenarios, interaction specification, information architecture, and low fidelity prototyping. So this is an 8 hours examination, and this brings you to the certification as a professional for designing solutions from the user's perspective. In our usability testing and evaluation scheme, the practical test is obviously a usability test. And this assignment is quite long, I must say, but if you really want to show that, that you are capable of planning, performing, and documenting a professional usability test, you should assign 3 days to do that work. This is not a classroom test. This is something that people do either in their office environment or in their home environment. And the usability test means that the participants they are given an assignment, they are given a public website that they are supposed to do the test on. And then the participants have to identify the user groups. They have to specify user group profiles. They have to recruit users, 3 users, because you got to go through 3 so-called usability test sessions. And the whole session from the moment on where each participant comes into the room until the participant leaves the room again has to be videotaped. And then a test report has to be issued, where you as a participant come up with the findings that you have in terms of usability problems that you have identified. And this all will then be assessed by a person who is a professional in the field, and they will look at the outcomes of what you have done and assess it against a standardized checklist. That's true for all of the advanced levels. It's not a sort of arbitrary assessment where someone looks at what you have done and says, well, yeah, maybe it's good. No, it goes along specified criteria where we can then come up with a number of points that is either a statement about passing the test or failing the test. Okay, so this is the overall certification test approach. I here have just a snapshot of such a test for the user requirements engineering professional. Here we have the people sitting in the classroom, and here on the wall the interview between the user requirements professional and the user is being conducted, and this interview takes about 30 minutes, and afterwards these people have 6 hours or 5.5, because it's 6 hours altogether, 5.5 hours to analyze what they have seen and come up with, as I said before, user needs, user requirements, so-called task models, which is, if you like, the workflow that users have as part of the task. And this is sort of just a visual impression about how the certification works. The person from ISQI basically sits 2 meters away from these people and watches them all day, what they're doing. So nobody, what's the word for that? I forgot the word. So everybody does what they are supposed to do, put it this way. Now, here's another snapshot of the practical certification test for the usability testing and evaluation professional. What you see here is a website that has been given to the person taking the test. The person taking the test, you see down here on the right, this is the usability test facilitator or moderator, we call them. And here you have a test participant, and this test participant is currently trying to find a specific TV program on that website here. And the facilitator observes all the actions that the user takes on the system, and based on what the user did, in contrast to what the people who built the website thought they would do, is then documented, videotaped, documented, and analyzed in a usability test report. Okay, so that gives you a bit of an impression about the CPUX UT certification. Then we have the Certified Professional for Designing Solutions. This is one of the pictures from the curriculum where you see what is being taught in the course. In the course, they teach you all about so-called early design, first drafts, and refined design. And as part of those phases in a project, they show you which deliverables turn out of that. It's a very prominent term lately is the term conceptual modeling. Some of you might have heard of things like object-oriented user experience, which is actually booming, as one example of how to structurally come to designed solutions. And in the course, you learn all about the deliverables that turn out as part of design, and how to come to those deliverables and how to document them. That's the Designing Solutions Professional. This scheme started last year, December. So it's a rather new certification scheme, but many people were waiting for it. In 2021, we already have 10 courses announced, or more than 10 courses announced. Currently, if I look at the list, they're all in German, but I know about training providers who are already offering in-house trainings in English language remotely because there is a demand for it. Okay, now our scheme. So that was an overview on our offerings, on our qualification offerings that then ISQI offers certification tests for. If you want to self-study all those schemes, it is possible because the UXQB has a large set of documents on their website. And for each of our offerings, we have a full curriculum available. We have a full glossary available where you find the definitions of the terms that we apply. The certification procedure itself is clearly described for each of our qualifications. There is a full set of test questions that you can use for self-assessment, also for each of our schemes, where you can see, where am I with my knowledge in this particular subject, and what is it that I have to expect if I take the real test. So this set of test questions obviously is public test questions. They're not identical with the secret test questions, but they are representative of what to expect as part of a real test. For those who listen and are interested in offering trainings for one or more of the schemes, for each of our offerings, we have developed a model course, which is sort of a template for a timetable, if you like, where we say, ideally, you don't have to use that timetable literally, but if you're looking for a timetable that makes sense and you want to apply one that has been, let's say, that has been used and works, then the model course that we have in our documents is probably the right thing for you to use if you want to become a training provider. This is just a snapshot of our website, www.uxqb.org. Here you find in the documents section, you find all of our curricula. You also see here that there are documents in French and Russian. I must admit that the documents in French and Russian, they are older versions of our curriculum. But if you are a French-speaking person or a Russian-speaking person, you can still get an insight in what we teach or what we expect people to know in this language. The versions in English, German, and Chinese are up to date. They are the latest versions, which is the version from March 2018. Okay. In our glossary of terms, just an example for a term in there, the term user interface is defined, and user interface, if people think about the term, they always think about software, but or little elements, something that is flashing on a screen, on a washing machine, let's say. But user interface is more. There is more to the term user interface than what most people expect. User interface is defined as all information and controls that a product offers you in order to let you perform your task. And if you look at something as simple as a water bottle, and you ask yourself, what is the user interface of the water bottle? Well, you ask yourself first, what are the controls that the bottle offers me as part of my task? Or maybe even, what is the task that it supports? The task that it supports is drinking water. and there are subtasks in there like filling a glass, which people normally do. And as part of that subtask, filling a glass, you need a control to open or close the bottle. And you also need a control to hold the bottle and sort of shift it in the position so you can really get water out of the bottle. And these three bottles, they have these controls. Having said that, the one in the center is easier to use for people with smaller hands. The ones that we see outside are well designed visually, especially the one on the left side. But from a holding perspective, they are not as well designed as the one in the middle. If you ask yourself, what is the information that a water bottle offers you in terms of user interface? Well, the first thing is the information that there is water in the bottle. Okay, that's an important information. And interestingly, the people who design those user interfaces, they come up with all kinds of statements, but hardly ever you can see on a label that it tells you there's mineral water inside. And in many cases, people wonder, is it still, or is it medium, or is it I don't even know what the other word is, very bubbly or something. Even that is often hard to work out with a bottle due to usability problems that people have built into this system. Anyway, so even bottles have a user interface. That's all I tried to say here. And if you ask yourself, what is it in a systematic way? Well, you have to identify the information and controls that users require based on the task or tasks that the system supports. Here's an example of a test question from the CPUX F test. It's a public, it's one of those in the public test question sets. And in general, you always get a question and you get 6 possible correct answers. Sorry, 6 answers. And 6 of these answers, and if we look at those 6 answers, actually either 1 or 2 or 3 of the answers offered are correct. And the question always clearly tells you how many choices are correct, which 3, which 1, which 2, you know. So in this case, the question is, which 3 of the following components are part of the user interface of a car for the driver of the car, which is the user group. And these are the 6 choices here. I'm not going into detail here. The correct answers are these 3. And if you ask yourself, why on earth exactly these 3 and not the other ones that we see, you better download the document from our website, which gives you 40 questions altogether. And it gives you for each of the questions the correct answers and an explanation why the answer would be correct. So today we don't have time here, but you should entertain yourself by taking the public test for the CPUX F just to see where you are, or just to find out if you teach this as part of an accredited course, what you have to teach your students precisely. Okay. Now, here's the certificate for the CPUX F that you gain if you have passed the test. It tells the statement, the claim of the certificate is that the certificate confirms that the holder of the certificate is familiar with the general terms and concepts in the field of usability and user experience, in particular in the 7 fields of competence or areas of competence down here. The human-centered design process, definitions, concepts, and guidelines, understanding and specifying the context of use, specifying the user requirements, producing design solutions, usability tests, usability inspections, and user surveys. So this is the claim of the foundation level certificate. Remember, the foundation level assesses knowledge. It does not claim that you have shown to have the skills to specify the user requirements or to produce design solutions. It tests the knowledge. That is the foundation. And then you can take the advanced level certifications. Okay. Now, internationalization of the CPUX scheme, where are we? In general, the UXQB is a organization that shall, what's the word, survive, that shall live longer than the people who have started it, put it this way. And to make this happen, it is a non-profit organization that relies on member organizations. So at the moment we have 5 member organizations, and these organizations are, if you like, the usability professionals associations from specific countries. And it is the German UPA, it is the UPA from the United Kingdom, it is the Swiss chapter of the UPA, and then we have UX Denmark and UX Pro in Austria. And these are the organizations that participate in the development and maintenance of the scheme. Each of them sends up to 3 experts, or is allowed to send up to 3 experts to the UXQB, which then co-jointly come up with the newest versions of our documents. So the document or the scheme is always up to date. This is part of our internationalization efforts, that we engage countries to become member organizations of the UXQB by means of their largest, or of their organization that looks after usability and user experience in the country. And this is how we expand internationally, and this is how we make sure that we are an international organization, because you somehow have to, run the thing administratively, which is also a voluntary task. But on one hand, we have administrative efforts. On the other hand, we have technical efforts, and there we rely on technical experts from the countries that participate in the work. Okay. With regards to certificates, by the end of March, that was the last time where we counted or inventorized the figures. We do it every quarter of the year. By the end of March, we had a bit above 6,250 certified people, and I'm not sure about the number of countries, but it's at least 30 countries. Here you get a bit of an idea what the countries are within Europe, where we have, let's say, lots of certifications. But there are also people certified in the Arabic world, in the Far East, in Africa, in United States of America, in Canada. We find certified professionals according to the CPUX scheme around the globe. Having said that, the mass of the people comes from Europe. Okay. I think that's as much as I wanted to say today. Now, I was fast. Normally it's exactly 2:00 CET when I'm done. But I think we now have time for questions, if there are any. And at this point, hand back over to Franziska. Franziska, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Thomas, for all those information. We are really happy to have you today with us. As far as I can see, there's no question in any chat. So maybe we can wait like 1 more minute. If you have anything, just please put it into the comments, and I will read it out for Thomas and for us all, so we can answer your questions regarding UXQB, regarding CPUX, or whatever you want to ask about all those topics. But doesn't look for me as if someone's typing. So Thomas, I would say early weekend today.
yes, fine. I mean, everybody, you see our email addresses here on the slide. And if there are, if you just want to have let's say a private discussion with each of us, just drop us an email. We will reply, and we can even set up a call. So here are the email addresses, and that's as much, I think, as we can do today, Franziska. So thanks everybody. Thanks, Franziska. Have a great weekend, and see you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.